Here's the thing. I need you to stop scrolling through Zillow for a second and actually pay attention, because nobody in the real estate industry is going to tell you what I'm about to tell you. There are houses listed right now in dozens of American cities. Normal houses, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, base carpet, laminate countertops from the early 2000s, and they're going for $500,000. The listing agent is calling them starter homes with a straight face. And somewhere right now, a mortgage broker is telling a perfectly normal couple making a perfectly normal salary that yes, absolutely, they qualify for this loan. And look, qualifying for something and actually being able to afford it are two catastrophically different things. And that gap right there is where financial lives go to fall apart. So today we're going to do something radical. We're going to run the real numbers. Not the numbers the bank shows you, not the ones your real estate agent puts in a glossy pamphlet, the actual, honest, keep you up at night numbers. Because you deserve to know the truth before you sign 30 years of your life away. Let's start with the down payment, because this is where it gets ugly. The traditional wisdom says put 20% down. On a $500,000 house, that's $100,000 cash, just sitting there, waiting. The median American savings account has around $8,000 in it. So you're not a little short, you're $92,000 short. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I'll just save up. Great plan. If you're earning the median household income of about $84,000 a year, and you're somehow managing to save 10% of your gross, which, by the way, almost nobody actually does, you're putting away $8,400 a year. At that rate, it takes 12 years to save the down payment. And that's assuming home prices freeze completely, which, spoiler, they won't. So most people skip the 20% and put down 5% or 10% instead. Which, fine, that's reality. But the moment you do that, you unlock a fun little expense called PMI, Private Mortgage Insurance. This is a monthly fee you pay because you weren't wealthy enough to put the full amount down. It protects the bank, not you. It runs $200 to $400 a month. You're paying a poverty tax essentially just to be allowed to borrow money. Welcome to the system. Okay, now the actual monthly cost, and brace yourself. Let's say you pull together $50,000 for a 10% down payment. You've got a $450,000 loan. At current interest rates in the 6 to 7% range, your principal and interest payment lands somewhere around $2,750 to $2,850 a month. That's before you pay for a single other thing associated with owning the house. Here's where people get tripped up. They see that mortgage number and think, yeah, that's manageable. But that number is just the beginning. Property taxes, probably $4,000 to $8,000 a year. Call it $500 a month, being conservative. Homeowners insurance has absolutely skyrocketed in the last few years. Climate change has made it expensive to insure basically anything, anywhere. So you're looking at $250 to $350 a month. Then there's maintenance. The rule of thumb is 1% of the home's value per year, which on a $500,000 house is $5,000 annually, or about $417 every single month. And don't forget that PMI we talked about, another $200 to $400. Let's add it up. Mortgage, $2,850. Taxes, $500. Insurance, $300. Maintenance, $417. PMI, $300. You're sitting at roughly $4,367. And that's assuming nothing breaks, no HOA surprise assessments, no roof emergency. Just a perfectly normal month. So what income do you actually need? Look, financial advisors will tell you to keep housing costs under 28% of your gross monthly income. Banks will approve you if your total debt is under 43% of income. Let's reverse engineer this. If $4,367 is 28% of your income, you need to be making around $187,000 a year. If we used a more lenient 43% rule, you still need about $150,000 annually. And here's the punchline that nobody wants to say out loud. Only about 10 to 20% of American households earn $150,000 or more. That means 80% of people in this country cannot comfortably afford a $500,000 house under any reasonable financial measure. That's not an opinion. That's just math being cruel. Let me show you what this actually looks like in real life. Meet the households I'll call the Johnsons. 2 working professionals, combined income of $160,000. That's well above median, solidly upper middle class. They should be fine, right? Here's what happens when they buy that $500,000 home. $160,000 gross sounds great until you factor in federal taxes, state taxes, FICA, and a modest 401k contribution. After all that, they're taking home around $9,500 a month. That's real money they can actually spend. Subtract the $4,367 in housing costs, and they've got $5,133 left for everything else in their lives. 2 car payments, there goes $800. Car insurance for 2 vehicles, $250. Gas, because nothing is walkable in the suburbs, $300. Student loans for the degrees that got them the jobs that qualified them for the mortgage, conservatively $600. Health insurance premiums their employers don't fully cover, $400. Groceries for a family trying to eat reasonably well, $800 if they're careful. Utilities, electricity, water, gas, internet, phones, $450. We're now at $1,533 remaining, and we haven't touched clothing, kids' activities, car repairs, medical copays, or the basic human need to occasionally leave the house and feel like a person. And savings, emergency fund, additional retirement? Good luck. This household, earning $160,000, doing everything right, is spending 46% of their take-home pay just on housing, not 28%. Nearly half. And these aren't reckless people. They're not going on cruises or buying jet skis. They're just trying to live in a house the market told them was normal. Now imagine what this looks like for someone earning $120,000 or $100,000 or, God forbid, the actual median income of $84,000. At that income level, buying a $500,000 house isn't stretching, it's financial fantasy. The math isn't uncomfortable, it's impossible. Here's what nobody tells you about living house poor. Being house poor doesn't feel like a big dramatic collapse. It feels like checking your bank account before buying groceries. It feels like saying no to your kid's $35 field trip because that money might be needed if the check engine light comes on. It's lying awake at 2 a.m. doing math in your head about whether you can afford new tires this month or if you have to push it to next month and just hope it doesn't rain. Month 1, you make the payment. It's tight, but you did it. Month 4, your car needs brakes. $800 you don't have. Goes on the credit card. Month 7, the AC dies in July. The repair quote is $3,500. You finance it. Month 9, one spouse's hours get cut, and suddenly you're $600 short every month. And the emergency fund you meant to build never actually happened because there was never anything left. Every unexpected expense becomes a crisis. Every financial decision runs through one filter. Can we still make the mortgage? You become a prisoner in a house you can't enjoy, working a job you can't leave, maintaining a life that looks okay from the outside and feels like quicksand from the inside. The system is not designed to protect you. Here's what makes this genuinely maddening. Nobody in a home purchase transaction has an incentive to tell you the truth. The mortgage broker makes money when you close the loan, not when you're comfortable 5 years later. The real estate agent's commission is tied to the sale price. The bank profits from 30 years of interest payments. Nobody at that closing table is asking whether this decision will actually improve your life or just transfer your money to a bank while you stress about property taxes and pray nothing breaks. Home prices have increased roughly 400% since 1990. Median household income is up about 180% in the same period. The math has been broken for a long time, and we've just collectively agreed not to talk about it. Instead, we've rebranded financial desperation as adulting. Oh, you're house poor? Welcome to homeownership. Can't afford furniture for 3 rooms? That's just part of the journey. Your parents bought a house at your age. Never mind that it costs 3 times their income and yours costs 6 times yours. Your friends are buying. Never mind that you have absolutely no idea what their actual financial situation looks like behind that freshly painted front door. So what do you actually do? Look, I'm not here to tell you to give up on home ownership forever. I'm here to tell you to give up on the delusion that a $500,000 house is within reach just because a bank will let you sign the papers. If your household income is south of $140,000 and you're looking at a $500,000 house, stop. Just stop. Not because you're a failure, not because you didn't work hard enough, but because the numbers genuinely do not work, and no amount of positive thinking or freelance side hustles will change that. The real question isn't whether you can technically get approved. The real question is whether owning this house will actually improve your life or just transfer your money to a bank while you stress about property taxes and pray nothing breaks. Maybe the right move right now is to keep renting and invest the difference. Maybe it's to look at a $300,000 or $350,000 house in a less expensive market. Maybe it's to wait. Honestly, genuinely wait for your income to grow or the market to correct, whichever comes first. There's no shame in any of those choices. There's no trophy for buying a house you can barely afford. What actually builds wealth isn't owning a house you can barely afford. It's having margin in your budget. It's being able to invest consistently. It's not having to choose between fixing your roof and contributing to your retirement. It's sleeping at night. Real wealth is financial freedom, not equity you can't access because you're trapped by the asset that's supposed to be making you wealthy. You're not failing. The system is failing you. If you feel priced out, if home ownership feels like it's slipping away, if you're sitting there wondering what you did wrong, you didn't do anything wrong. Home prices have outpaced wages so dramatically that what was achievable for previous generations has quietly become a luxury item for most people, and nobody wanted to admit it. So run your real numbers, all of them, not just the mortgage payment. Be brutally honest about your income, your stability, your actual savings. And if the math doesn't work, walk away with your head held up, because recognizing when a deal is bad isn't weakness. It's the smartest financial move you'll ever make. The market will keep pretending these prices make sense. Banks will keep approving loans that probably shouldn't exist. Real estate agents will keep telling you it's a great time to buy. But you don't have to participate in collective financial delusion just because everyone else seems to be. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is look at a game that's rigged, understand exactly how it's rigged, and choose not to play.